Hello everyone, welcome to Lucid Mains program by Ekam IAS. Today we'll be dealing with Nagaraj Judgement and Creamy Layer for SC/ST. This topic comes under GS2. Let's start with why news. The Supreme Court in September delivered its verdict on Jarnail Singh versus Lakshmi Narayan Gupta. This judgment is related to reservation in promotions. The question before the court was whether a 7-judge bench should review the judgment in M. Nagaraj and others versus Union of India. So what is M. Nagaraj and others versus Union of India case? So let's talk about the background of this case. Article 16 deals with equality of opportunity in matters of public employment. So originally Article 16 did not contain any explicit provision regarding promotion. But Parliament passed various constitutional amendments which added the Article 16(4)(a) and 16(4)(b), which explicitly allowed reservations in promotions for SCs and STs. The constitutional validity of these provisions was challenged in Nagaraj. Now talking about the highlights of the Nagaraj judgment, the court upheld the constitutional amendments. The court also held that it is not mandatory for the state to make reservations for SC/ST in matter of promotions. But if any state wanted to provide reservation, then it must first collect quantifiable data showing backwardness of the class and its inadequate representation in public employment. Also, the state has to take into account the likely impact of reservation on overall administrative efficiency. The court did impose some restrictions like creamy layer and the 50% ceiling limit that would be applied to caste-based reservation in promotions. So what happened was that the Nagaraj judgment did not define what quantifiable data the state was required to collect. This confusion affected the filling of vacancies in various government departments. And also petitions were filed against the test of backwardness and application of the creamy layer concept while making a provision for reservation. So this all led to the Jarnail Singh versus Lakshmi Narayan Gupta case. The key points of the Jarnail Singh versus Lakshmi Narayan Gupta judgment is that the Supreme Court refused to refer the verdict in the 2006 M. Nagaraj judgment to a larger 7-judge bench. The Supreme Court also held that the creamy layer concept can be extended to SCs and STs. A point that is to be noted here is that this creamy layer will be imposed in case of promotions only. It do not affect the direct recruitment process. But as a relief to the governments, the states will not have to collect data on the backwardness of the SC/STs. The bench did not comment on two other conditions given in the 2006 verdict which dealt with adequacy of representation of SC/ST and not to disturb administrative efficiency. The application of creamy layer principle to the SC/ST community does not go against the presidential list under Article 341 and 342 of the Constitution. That is, the caste, groups or subgroups named under this presidential list continue same as before. Interpreting Article 14 and Article 16 with Article 341 and 342, it gave the constitutional courts the power to exclude creamy layers from such groups or subgroups. The court also said that it did not agree with the views of the then CJI K.G. Balakrishnan in the 2008 Ashoka Kumar Thakur versus State of Bihar case. The Ashoka Kumar case will be explained in the upcoming slide. So now let's look at the early judgments on creamy layer principle. In 1993, we have Indira Sahuni judgment which asked the center to identify creamy layer for caste reservation. In 1993, we have Indira Sahuni judgment. Here the court has asked the center to identify creamy layer for caste reservation. However, this concept was extended only to OBCs and the SC/STs were left from the preview of it. In 2005, we have E.V. Chinnaya versus State of Andhra Pradesh and others. Here also, the court stated that creamy layer won't be extended to SCs and STs. In 2008, we have Ashoka Kumar Thakur case. Here the court held that the creamy layer concept cannot be extended to SC/STs as they are as separate classes by themselves. In 2008 verdict, the court said that it did not agree with the view that SC/STs are a separate classes by themselves. Now let's see what is creamy layer. The creamy layer is generally a small section of people that occupies the top of a marginalized community's socio-economic hierarchy. The creamy layer test specifies that a candidate must be below a certain income level in order to avail reservation in government jobs and educational institutions. Originally, the sole basis of reservation was caste. It was a Supreme Court which brought in the concept of creamy layer in 1993 through its judgment in the Indira Sahni case. But the principle applied only to the OBCs and not to SC/STs then. Now let's see what justification the court is giving for application of creamy layer on the SC/STs. Being a part of the creamy layer allows Dalits and Adivasis to come out of untouchability or backwardness. Also, excluding the creamy layer will serve the cause of equality, since this creamy layer bag all the coveted jobs in the public sector, leaving the rest of the class as backward as they always were. Let's see some of the arguments against extending creamy layer principle. The scheduled caste and scheduled tribes lack representation mainly at the group A level, that is like chief executive officers, managing directors, etc., which do not have direct recruitment provisions. So promotions are the only way the members of these communities make it to this level. The consequence of this Supreme Court judgment is that the promotions will stop at the group D and group C levels, affecting the representation at top levels. The next point is, in Indira Sahni judgment, the Supreme Court makes it clear that the SC/STs are given job reservation not because they are poor but because they are excluded. The first part of Article 335 stipulates job reservation for SC/STs as a right of representation and not as a welfare measure. Next point is, given the uneven educational opportunities across the divides of rich, poor and urban, rural, the poor or underprivileged access substandard education. Today's creamy layer is yesterday's underprivileged. Now theoretically, SC/STs would end up garnering more posts than their proportion in population. A well-qualified and large SC/ST group have to compete as non-reserved candidates, and it will corner a substantial number of open posts. At the same time, their less privileged cousins would fill the quota. The Constitution made the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe as a separate category of states. This was not only to protect them from such aggression but also to help them gain the strength they need to withstand it and to grow autonomously. The recent verdict has snatched away this advantage. Reservation, by definition, is a means to end discrimination based on caste, but economic ceiling for reservation cheats the purpose. The Adivasis and Dalits face discrimination even if they are well off or educated. For example, in 2014, a temple in Bihar was reportedly cleaned and its idol washed after Dalit chief minister's visit. Now let's see some of the arguments supporting creamy layer. The situation has changed from the time the Constitution was framed. The social stigma had disappeared to a large extent. Dalits have become president and chief justice in the country. The whole object of reservation is to see that backward classes of citizens move forward so that they can march hand in hand with other citizens of India on an equal basis. This will not be possible if only the creamy layer within that class bag all the coveted jobs. The elite or privileged sections of the SC/STs, who are mostly well qualified as general candidates, they snatch away the maximum benefits, and the 95% of the members of these communities are at a disadvantage. The report of the Centre's Advisory Committee on the Revision of the List of Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes, also known as the Lokur Committee, which was set in 1965, says that backwardness has a tendency to perpetuate itself, and those who are listed as backward try to remain as such due to various concessions and benefits they derive. Thus, backwardness becomes a vested interest. This means that the privileged never want to get rid of the concession and consideration they get because it enables them to stay at least a step ahead of their underprivileged counterparts. In essence, many are using this as a tool for personal gain even though they are socio-economically advanced. So this system needs to be reformed. Now let's wind up the session with a way forward. The code can provide the creamy layer with the right to opt out of reservations. At present, SC/ST candidates do not have a right to reject reservations. A simple administrative decision to allow SC/ST candidates to compete in the general category would help thousands to leave the space for less privileged among them. The proportion of SCs and STs to the total population of India should be taken to be tested for determining whether they are adequately represented in promotional posts. This is a realistic suggestion by Centre which was rejected by the judiciary. The judiciary and executive should come together and come up with a comprehensive reservation plan to ensure the upliftment of the downtrodden. Now, another suggestion would be that a comprehensive assessment of reservation policy is required, which not only calls for engaging in a dialogue with opponents and supporters alike, but also ensures that the voice of less vocal groups who are not even aware of such programs are represented. That's all with regard to this topic. Thank you for watching.